how much of your growth do you think is just like tutorials?
I think at least 80%. So
80%.
Yeah, I would say it's like 80%.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Plugin.fm podcast, brought to you by Freemius. In the show, I chat with inspiring product makers about their experiences in entrepreneurship, life, and everything in between. On the show, we want to uncover actionable practices and strategies that you can use to succeed on your own business journey. My name is Patrick Rolland, and today I'm going to be sitting down with WordPress solopreneur and my namesake, Patrick Posner from Berlin, Germany. Patrick is a super experienced developer and self-proclaimed one-man show who builds, maintains, and sells WordPress plugins. He also plays bass guitar and is dad to the fluffiest dog, his words, not mine. As a solopreneur, Patrick is no stranger to diversification as a means of audience and business growth. He currently has six products in his portfolio, offering static website generation, content protection, QR code creation, age verification, and document library security, just to name a few. His flagship product is Simply Static, which has over 40,000 active installs and over 500,000 downloads, making it the most popular static site generator for WordPress. That is a pretty diverse portfolio right there. And it makes me wonder if it's something of a juggling act for a one-man team. Well, we won't have to wonder much longer because that's what we're getting into today. Clearly, Patrick is succeeding as a solopreneur by taking on multiple verticals. But how does he do it? What does he prioritize and what does he postpone? What growth strategies have worked for him and what would he rather forget? If you're after actionable tips and tactics to grow your product portfolio as a one-man army, then you are listening to the right show. Patrick, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Yeah. Hello. Glad to be here.
Yes, thank you for coming. We're happy to have you here. So I'm excited because you're an experienced WordPress developer, a solopreneur who builds products, and you do a bunch of different things. But tell us, before we get into the specific products and how you manage them, how did you get into development and what drew you into those niches?
Yeah, sure. Happy to give like a little introduction to myself. So I'm working with WordPress professionally for about 10 years now. I actually started with WordPress at the university. We had a model. I studied information technology back in the day. And we had a model where we covered content management systems and the workflows involved. And as a particular example, we used WordPress. And we started by learning how the system works and started modifying themes and even just a tiny little plugin at the end of the course. And that hooked me on WordPress and I never touched anything else again. Once I graduated, I started my first job in a little agency and worked with WordPress as well, setting up basic client websites, doing some kind of, I'm not sure if I want to call it design, but it was like web design, more or less. And switched later to a development job at MarketPress. MarketPress is the biggest WordPress product company here in Germany, with doing like over $1 million per year in revenue selling specifically WooCommerce products. And I built one of their major flagship products back in the day, and it's still available today. And on the side, I started starting my own plugins, kind of like as a hobby project. I never really imagined to make more than a couple $100 or so working on that, but it quickly took up, and I decided in January 2021 that I want to go full-time into building plugins for a living.
So you've only been doing full-time plugin development for 2 years?
Yeah.
Wow. So you got a lot done in 2 years.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow.
I mean, I had
great.
like the content protection plugin. I already worked on it for like 4 to 5 years, but it was just a side project. So I really focused on developing in 2021.
Yeah, that's very cool. Did you make money on your first? When you decided to go into plugins, did you just sort of make money with your first try, or did you try to make money on a plugin and it didn't make anything?
Actually, my absolute first plugin was kind of successful. So I got like, I don't know, $200 to $300 a month from that particular plugin. The plugin itself doesn't exist anymore, but not because it doesn't make any revenue. It was just too support heavy at that time.
Yes.
It was a plugin for WooCommerce, and it was like an order table plugin. I mean, today there are like hundreds of plugins that doing kind of like an order table for WooCommerce, but at that time it was one of a few. But it was just too support intensive to handle that as a side project. I had a couple of bets that weren't really successful, and I think it's normal. So you have an idea, you build a little prototype, you throw it to the repository, and you see what happens. Most of the times, nothing happens, but sometimes there is something, maybe a willingness to pay, or at least a huge amount of support, which indicates, okay, there's some kind of interest in the product you have developed.
Very cool. I love hearing all that. So let's talk about your different products. So I think many people focus on one or maybe two or three products, and they kind of only expand their portfolio of plugins once they're making a ton of money and they're in a position to hire. So what made you expand that product portfolio?
Yeah, it's a pretty good question. So I think it's both a valid path. So it's good to have like one product and put all your effort and time into it to grow it. But the main problem for me was always the risk behind it. So let's say you have one product and you believe it's the product, the absolute best product you will ever make. But maybe no one's really interested in that. So from my perspective, it's way less risky to have multiple products and have like multiple bets on the market. So you have like, okay, even if, let's say, something in the ecosystem changes. In my particular case, maybe WordPress would improve their password protection built into core. Like you can have multiple passwords and basically everything my product offers. That would be a huge risk on my side if I would concentrate completely on that particular product. But now that I have like 6 main products, I can, I'm kind of calm about changes in the market, so that I always know, okay, if someone builds a competitor with a huge budget or something changes in core, I'll be safe. I can always concentrate on one of my other products to grow it further.
I love that. I'm a big fan of, I'm a personal finance nerd, and obviously a big fan of like diversification. There is something about, I also do a lot of marketing stuff, and I help companies do SEO and stuff like that. And there are these like big, so just as an example, there are these big like SEO changes where, this page, because of all the internal linking, is ranked really high, but then Google changes their algorithm, and you used to be getting 50,000 visits, and now you're getting 5,000 visits, and your business can just turn off. I think that could theoretically happen in the WordPress world. Theoretically, where the WordPress.org plugin directory gets a search change. And like one of the plugins could just like, instead it used to be ranked number 1 and now it's ranked number 11, and you get, a tenth of the traffic or whatever. Yeah. I think that's really smart, just to know that you don't know what's going to happen in the future. WordPress core will change and include some functionality of one of your plugins. The WordPress search functionality will change. Google regular search engines will change, whatever. Anything could happen, but you have 6 pretty stable products that if any one of them fell, you can still rely on the other 5. I love that.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so you are still doing, you're doing all these, you're making these 6 plugins, you're maintaining them. That means you're developing them, you're supporting them, and you're probably also doing some marketing for them. How do you juggle all those responsibilities? Is it Monday is plugin 1, or is it Monday is marketing for all of your plugins? How do you juggle that many responsibilities?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to have like a dedicated plan on when it's time to do support, when it's time to do marketing, which product on a particular day. Most of the time, I'm doing that by iterating on a weekly basis. So I start with, let's say, Simply Static next week, and I dedicate the entire week to Simply Static, as long as there isn't something important that needs to be done right now, like a security vulnerability that needs to be patched or something like that. But I usually do one product a week and switch context next week. And I do support daily, marketing weekly, and development weekly. So I usually try to have like a 50-50 differentiation between coding and marketing. So before I usually have like a little backlog stacked up with features I already built but haven't released. And I release them as soon as I have the marketing part ready. So that can be a little a tutorial, a blog post,
Yeah.
a Twitter post with a little video showing the new feature. And I try to time that as organically as possible to make it like, okay, so there's a feature and then there's a marketing post. And so it's not that structured behind the scenes, but at least at least it should look like that. So,
Yeah. Okay. So that, I was not expecting that answer. I like it. That seems hard to do where basically, if you really want to work on your static website generator, you basically have to wait like 5 weeks for it to like come back around to the you have to wait a month. So really you're working on each product every month and a half. You're spending a week on it. Are you okay? Then I want to know, if you're shipping new features, are you almost always trying to get it complete within a week? Right? Because otherwise you a month and a half later, you've forgotten where you are. I can't imagine. I think that'd be really hard to do.
Yeah, that's true. So I try to break down each feature in a package that can be done completely within a week. So with development, testing, writing, updating the docs, writing tutorials, everything needs to be wrapped up in a week. And if not, it's true. It's hard to getting back to it in 5 weeks from now. Not even knowing what was a major feature I wanted to build that time. So yeah, I try to wrap everything up within a week.
So I can totally imagine building a feature in a week. I can definitely imagine, on day one, you have your idea and you're looking at the coding and you're looking at the files and you're like, all right, I can add this thing, I can add this method here, I can do this. And day two, maybe you get most of the work done. And then day three is like debugging and error checking and some stuff like that. But then it's like, it feels like it's Monday's planning, Tuesday's doing, Wednesday's cleaning up. And then Thursday, Friday is, documentation and maybe a little bit of marketing just to show the feature that came out. That sounds tight. Like, I guess I'm shocked that you must get a lot done in a week to make that work.
Yeah, that's true.
Are you a productivity,
Yeah, absolutely.
guru? Okay. Do you get up at 6 a.m. with a cold shower or something?
Not in that way. So I'm really not a morning person, but I try to really hardly optimize my productivity from time tracking to using a Kanban structure, automating a lot from support to documentation to if I push to GitHub, it automatically run tests against my code and creates a new branch if there's an error and pings me via Slack if there's something broken or need my attention immediately. So I put a lot of automation and processes in place to make it, even if it's a tight schedule, to make it work without extraordinary efforts.
When do you do that? When are you also writing all the automation and error testing? Years ago. Okay.
Years ago. I rarely switch my toolset. So I still use, for example, Trello for my project management. There are things like Notion and all the other cool tools, but I simply don't have the time to really learn these and get productive with it. So I stay with Trello, even if it's a little buggy and outdated and but it works. So I know where's the roadmap. I know how to set estimates, framing it in a timetable and things like that. There's also a lot of automation combined with Trello, from Slack to Zapier to GitHub. Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So if you had to look back, what would you have done differently? Is there anything you would have done differently? Your schedule, your products, anything like that?
Specifically, 2 things I would tackle differently. The first one, choose goddamn simpler projects. So I think, I love my product. So I love being nerdy about password protection and encryption and static site generation. It's all cool. It's fun. But if I see there's there's a timeline plugin, and this little timeline plugin maybe took 10 hours to build and maybe additional 20 hours to polish with different display options and some other neat features, and people buying it like crazy. And I compare that to for example, my password protection plugin, which has military standard encryption and a lot of internals that are quite complex, from regex patterns to maintaining sessions without using the actual login methods provided by WordPress. And it's complex, and it's also sometimes pretty hard to debug an actual issue. So if a customer comes to support and asks, okay, my password isn't working, it's not like, oh yeah, you maybe had like a typo in your password. No, it's never a typo. It's almost like, okay, have you checked your caching setup? And what about your browser cache? And maybe your local session storage is blocked. And have you looked into your firewall? And all of that, it's way too complex. So if I would start again, I would start with a simpler product, and maybe a more like a visual thing where people more immediately get a benefit. So it's easier to market and easier to communicate the idea behind the product. Number 2 is marketing. I mean, it's a cliche. So you are a solo developer, and instead of doing marketing, you build another feature and another feature and another feature. And maybe I should have spent way more time at the beginning doing marketing. Things like writing tutorials, doing something in social media, at least something, from posting a screenshot or uploading a little YouTube video, things like that. So people really enjoy following the journey of indie hackers, solopreneurs, or smaller startups. And I should have leveraged that benefit way earlier than I'm doing it now, but it's kind of late. So I'm a bit out of the early indie startup solopreneur. So it's not like, hey, I made my first 100 MRR this month or so. So the milestones are bigger, and it takes way more time to reach another milestone. And people don't get excited if you say like, okay, it took me 4 years to get to like 20K MRR. I mean, it's impressive to get to 20K MRR, but people will lose focus if you need like 2 or 3 years to get that. But jumping from 100 MMR to 200 MMR and celebrating it on social media, people get excited and want to follow the journey and recommend your products. And that's something I should have started earlier.
Is that where your marketing is succeeding, is with developers and WordPress people, like hackers, developers who are interested in following other people's journey, and they're choosing your product because it is the perfect bespoke crafted solution for them. Is that who you're marketing to, as opposed to, you're not marketing to the person who just starts a WordPress website and searches you on WordPress.org and finds it and then buys the pro version?
I tried that at the beginning to specifically market to the actual customer of my product. So things like how to set up password protection in WordPress. But the competition, especially in the organic search, is pretty high. So let's start with WP Beginner. WP Beginner has a tutorial it's a wonderful website, and I learned a ton at the beginning, but it's like a huge, massive website covering all topics related to WordPress beginners. So chances are that people find my specific article about password protection in WordPress is not that high. Maybe I'm on the second page, maybe I'm place 9 or so, but most people choose like the first or second or third search results. So by getting a step earlier to kind of, I'm not really market to other developers, but kind of letting them know, hey, I'm the guy with like the password protection plugin, and they recommend it to their own customers or people they know. So a huge amount of my customers are agencies, and word of mouth is a pretty big factor for my sales. So agencies talk to each other and recommend my products, and I get like, one day there's an American buying my product, and next day, hey, there's someone from Sweden who got a recommendation from the American that bought the product yesterday. And I think, okay, well, it's a pretty small world, but that kind of works better. It's also easier to reach a certain visibility. So you don't compete with these giants, these giant knowledge bases, and instead you have like more like a buddy relationship. We recommend products from other friends and developers and grow together.
Is that something? Okay, so this is fascinating. Did you do the SEO research before? Did you write the article? How to reset your passwords in WordPress. Did you write that and see it wasn't ranking well, or did you do all the SEO research and realize it would just be really hard to compete with a big WordPress news site like WP Beginner? I'm just super curious.
Yeah. I'm kind of like an SEO nerd. At least for a developer, I'm like an SEO nerd. So my first job, where what I told you earlier, where I said like I started in an agency, it was specifically an SEO agency, and I learned quite a lot in the time about how SEO works and how to do keyword research and all of that. So I started my tutorials from the beginning within a keyword research tool. In my case, it was Ahrefs, so I know exactly password protection for WordPress had X amount of search volume, and there's website A, B, and C ranking for that, and they are maybe pretty big players, and I have to do like catching the long tail phrases to get some reach, and it takes just a lot of time for specific keywords to get to a substantial amount of traffic, especially for the password protection plugin. It's not so competitive for my other products.
What's interesting, so there's, besides your productivity skills and your project management skills, you also have these SEO and research skills that helped you make sure that you did the research to realize that this one marketing channel that everyone talks about SEO, this one marketing channel could work maybe, but that's like the very long game, and there'd be a lot of competition. So I love that you also have skills that prevented you from going down the wrong roads. So that's really, really, really smart. I love that. So I do want to go on. So you have in the WordPress plugin directory, I think it might be closer to 800,000 downloads for all of your WordPress plugins. You're clearly doing something right. Out of the 6 main products, 2 of them are about static websites. Simply Static being the most popular, and then there's also Simply CDN. So what took you into this static website niche?
Yeah, sure. So let's get back like 3 years. And if you ask the same question, I would have said, okay, what the hell are static websites? And is it like 1999 and we built all of our website with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? Fast forward, a couple of years ago, I had a client project, and they booked a TV commercial. And we had to make sure that the website won't get down during that commercial. And we hadn't really the possibility or ability to adjust the server setup. So the server was set, and there was nothing we could have done about it. So then I started researching, and I found out that there are a couple tools that you can use to make WordPress a static website. So there are a bunch of software as a service projects doing that, but because of GDPR, most of them went just not a good fit for that project. So I looked more into plugins, found a couple, but all of them were mostly unmaintained. And the most popular one was Simply Static. And I thought, okay, being a WordPress developer for about 10 years, I should be able to make it work. So it can't be that hard. I downloaded the plugin, and with about 1 or 2 hours in, I patched it and made it compatible with PHP 7.2 or 7.1, somewhere around 7. And we used that, and it worked incredibly well. So the server hadn't any kind of hiccups with delivering the static site. And we had like 1.5 million unique requests within like 2 or 3 hours. That somehow saved the client project, even with like a very little budget for server setups and things like load balancing and so we just shipped the static site and worked very well. After that, I contacted the original developer of Simply Static and provided him the patch, and we got into a little discussion about the future of Simply Static and what he had planned. And he told me that he has like his 3rd child or so coming in a couple of weeks, and he not even have like an actual laptop, MacBook to even open the code and work on it. And he isn't even a developer anymore. So he's doing consulting now for a pretty big Fortune 500 company, but in a totally different area. And I asked him if he would be okay with me adopting the plugin. I said, okay, yeah. And we transferred the ownership from the WordPress org repository to me. And first thing I've done is patching our outstanding issues and growing from then. So I started with educating why you want to be using a static site, what are the benefits, telling people it isn't that hard, so you don't need to be a developer to use Simply Static, and what you can do with it, and how flexible and robust static sites are. And yeah, here we are now. I adopted the plugin with about 10,000 active installations, and fast forward 2 years later, we're about to hit 50,000 active installations in a couple of weeks.
That's awesome. I mean, I think the coolest thing about that story is that was a fallow asset. Like it was just like it's like a tool sitting on the floor. You're like, why is no one using this tool? And then you ask the developer about maintaining it, and then you just decided to take it over. I love that. It already had a base. It already had the core fundamentals. You just started adding on to something that clearly people needed, right? Like there were already 10,000 downloads.
Yeah.
But no one was maintaining these plugins, so you just decided to maintain one. I love that.
It's also a pretty good indicator if you Google for if you Google Simply Static today, you will obviously find a lot of tutorials from me and things like that. But before that, before I adopted the plugin, I Googled Simply Static quite a few times and noticed that there are a lot of how to make it work strategies on Stack Overflow and Reddit, and people, there were 10 forks. All of them are also unmaintained, but every one of them patched a single thing they faced. And that kind of motivations that people fork it, people providing patches online is a pretty good sign that there is a kind of a huge demand in such a solution.
Yeah, I love that. All right, so let's keep going with that journey. Give us the play-by-play. How did you grow Simply Static from that, you just take it over? How did you grow it marketing-wise and support-wise? Any marketing campaigns that come to mind or support issues?
I think the number one factor for growing a plugin, especially a plugin like Simply Static, I mean, Simply Static is really technical. So the number one task to grow such a thing is make it simple for non-developers. So remove any kind of jargon about the entire static site generation process. Make it easy to use, easy to understand, and make it updated. So push updates on WordPress org regularly. So there's never a last updated 6 months ago. It should always be updated to the latest version of WordPress. I mean, even if it works with the current version of WordPress, people asking and people demanding hey, is that thing working with the latest version of WordPress? I get the question. I mean, I update 2 days later. So the official WordPress release comes, and 2 days later, I increase the supported number in the WordPress org repository. And within that 20 to 24 hour time frame, there are 5 people asking, hey, have you checked it? Yeah, for sure, I've checked it. So I always test with an alpha version of the release, with a beta version of the release, and with the release candidate to make sure everything works as nicely as possible once the official version is out. But sure, people are asking about it, and you should make sure that these questions, in the best case, never come up, or you have an immediate answer for everyone, so that you can say, okay, yeah, it's working. We're updating tomorrow. Another important point is content. So I started just after the adoption, I started writing a lot of tutorials, and I've done quite a lot of keyword research before. And I noticed that things like how to make forms work on a static website is a pretty popular keyword combination, but no one ever wrote a really good article about it. So there are there's a place one was a Reddit answer. So, hey, there are external tools and you can use them. Okay, but which tools are available and how they work and what the hell? So I started covering everything related to static websites that is important to the end user. How forms work, how search works. Can I still use Google Analytics? Do I need a special plugin to make GDPR work on a static website? What about basic things like, does YouTube work on a static website? I mean, sure, it works, but people are asking about, I'm not sure. I mean, it's called static, so I think like text works, maybe images, but videos are not really static, right? So covering all of these topics within tutorials really boosted the audience consuming news about Simply Static and all things static, and people reaching out to me, suggesting things like new integrations, also services I never really heard of. So, I mean, there are basic things like GitHub. Okay, you know GitHub as a developer, but there was someone suggesting Sinatra also. I think it was Sinatra. And I thought, okay, let me Google it. Okay, yeah, another deployment platform. I understand. So there's so much communication involved, and that's one of the main reasons Simply Static grown so fast is because of the tutorials, the community behind it, and being active on WordPress.org and in the community around it, which means GitHub is also a huge communication platform for Simply Static. Forums are a huge communication touch point for me. Reddit, sometimes you need to be careful replying within Reddit, especially if you are the developer behind the tool someone asking about. So people can get a little bit toxic there, but all in all, it's cool if someone finds a Reddit post and says, hey, there's a developer providing an answer to the question asked, and he's helpful, he's there, he monitors different channels and quickly replies if I ever get stuck somewhere.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was looking at your site, and it looks like you have more than 175 tutorials.
Yeah.
Now, so let me ask you this way: what % of your marketing is that? Like these tutorials, clearly you understand SEO and the long tail, and you're also preventing some support. But like, how much of your growth do you think is just like tutorials?
I think at least 80%. So
80%.
Yeah, I would say it's like 80%. So the other channels are growing more and more, especially social and video. But
Okay.
My number one success factor for all of my products is organic search, is SEO, are the tutorials.
Incredible. All right. So if someone is listening to this podcast right now and they want to make tutorials, what advice would you give them?
So before writing the first line of code, spend some time with the community you're trying to reach. Let's say you build like a tracking plugin. Yeah, something like GDPR-friendly tracking for WordPress. There are a bunch of competitors. You should know about them, obviously, but spend some time with the community. Learn what people are asking for, which problems they face. Bring in recommendations. Listen carefully and build like a reputation around that niche. That can be done by having a blog, being involved in the community on Twitter, within forums, anywhere. And slowly build something upon that research. Try to spend some time writing tutorials. I know it's hard in the beginning to sit down and write a tutorial about whatever you like to build as a plugin, as a theme, or as a WordPress product in general. But it's absolutely worth it. So if you spend like, let's say 3 months writing tutorials, just one tutorial a month would be a good start to have something to show it to people. And take your time, do the research. And if you feel comfortable, you know the topic, you know the problems people face, and you have the answers, then sit down and build an MVP. Once you have that MVP, don't push to like a big release and submit it to Product Hunt and all that stuff. Start with a simple MVP and actually talk to people from that audience you were involved in, and try to convince them to be a beta tester. So you have like 3 to 5, maybe 10, maybe more. I mean, the more the better, right? And try to get some beta testers and get their feedback and revisit your MVP and make it more stable, more robust, more appealing to the community and to your potential customers.
All the tutorials are great, but also try to find the community, try to find beta testers in that community and maximize that. And I think you said one tutorial a month. How long, if you're getting started, how long does a tutorial take? Is it going to take you like 20 hours a week?
Not even close. So right now I'm writing a tutorial in about like 2 to 3 hours.
What?
But I've done the research already. So I usually do like Sunday is for research. So I sat down on a Sunday and I think like, maybe I should write an article about videos on static websites. And then doing research, see what tools are available, maybe create a test account and playing around with it a bit and noting everything down. So I have like it's not really a draft, it's more a collection of ideas and links I like to mention. And I'm doing that not for a specific tutorial, but for entire set of tutorials. So it can be one article for Simply Static, one for password protection, one for file protection. And I'm collecting them in a specific folder. And then I set a specific day in a week. Most of the time it's like Thursday or Friday. And I pick one and start writing the article. And I usually need like 2 to 3 hours to write like a 1K word post. And I have some help reviewing the article and making sure so the grammar is correct and the message I like to give to the potential readers is communicated in a structured and meaningful way. So there is someone helping with that. Otherwise, it would take like, I think, at least 5 to 6 hours to make it an releasable article.
Yeah. Okay, so I feel like there was some your secret productivity trick is working Sundays, or doing, and maybe it's like not work, right? But it's like you're at least doing your research on a particular topic, which I still consider work. So how much time are you spending on Sundays on your computer? Let's say.
On average, I would say like 3 to 4 hours. Mostly in the morning. So starting from like 8 a.m. to 12. And it's really for inspiration, for idea generation, nothing involved with coding something or doing support or anything like that. Just inspiration, reviewing my own business strategies. So is that still the path I like to follow, or maybe I need to adjust something, or an idea that maybe hasn't worked or had worked and I never thought about pursuing that particular idea. Something changed in the market. I always do like listen to podcasts while researching and get some inspirations from the site. But I try to do I try to limit it to about 3 to 4 hours. Otherwise, my wife would like. So
I get it.
4 hours is the maximum.
Yes. No, I get it. So I will just say, I do, some people are very strict about not working on the weekends. I'm a big fan of, I will usually spend 30 to 45 minutes just on my priorities for the week. Here's the 3 things I need to do Monday. Here's the 3 things I need to do Tuesday. Just getting that out on paper means that on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm flying because I spent the time on Sunday doing that. So it's interesting. If you really want to grow your business, that's something you can choose to do. That's an option to you.
Yeah.
Cool. So your business is growing. There is a point where you can't run all of this by yourself, and you may have to. You may not be able to be a solopreneur forever. So what does the future look like for Patrick Posner?
It's a pretty good question. So, I have like a little cheat code already applied. So while I'm actually doing all of the work myself, so I'm doing support, I'm doing development, I'm writing tutorials, I have some help for specific tasks. So I have someone helping with development, especially for Simply Static, covering bug fixes and things that are like way too time consuming to track down for me on a usual week. I have someone proofreading my tutorials and also writing some parts of it and doing some kind of keyword research. So, for me, it's always important to actually know how to do it. And I really love the flexibility of being a solopreneur and doing all of that. But it's true. So you can't do that forever. So I get help for specific parts, but I never give up control completely. I just onboarded someone now helping with support, with customer support. I still review every ticket, but maybe in a couple of months, I don't have to. So so I think the way for me to grow the business is to optimize the processes, expand my network, and maybe, just maybe, giving up completely on some tasks. For example, customer support, or maybe content marketing. But I'm not really sure if you're like having kind of like a personal brand, if you can give up on content marketing completely. So it's just not the same if, like, let's say I would record videos, and in a couple of months there's some other guy doing the videos for me. It's hard. So maybe customer support would be a good starting point. I don't really think I would give up completely on development, even with like, I don't know, 200K MRR. I still like to sit down someday and do some coding and debug an issue and improve some existing workflow, things like that. But yeah, we'll see.
That's exciting. I love that you know what you want to do and what you don't want to do. And I think all of us should design our businesses so that if you love, and it sounds like you're incredibly good at tutorials. So maybe, and it is part of your personal brand. So maybe it makes a lot of sense to, like, as a business grows, maybe you can get a part-time developer to help you with more bug fixes, or more customer support people, or someone to help you with non-content marketing, right, brand marketing stuff, like, updating your logo and your website, stuff like that. But it's cool that you know that what you want to do, which is probably tutorials and development, because you're really good at those, and the tutorials are pretty public. So I love hearing that. That's great.
So I think that should be the way to grow for at least the next few years. Maybe we do an updated version of that in like 5 years from now, and maybe I'm just another CEO by then, but I don't think so. So I see myself writing tutorials and coding and explaining concepts for quite a while.
I think in 5 years we'll have to do this podcast again, but on your beach, on your island, on your private island.
That would be so cool, right?
Yeah. I will invite myself 5 years from now to your private island, so we can do
You're welcome.
an update. Perfect. Great. Final real question here. As WordPress matures and business opportunities keep growing, look, there's still lots of people entering the WordPress ecosystem, lots of solopreneurs developing themes, plugins, etc. What is your advice to those solopreneurs starting out, and how do they take that forward? How do they grow their own business in the WordPress world?
Yeah. So I think many people will hate my answer, but I say learn React, learn JavaScript deeply. So it's really, I know it's frustrating, and I know it's hard, and I know it's so different from what we've done for years within the WordPress space. But once you get into it, it's really rewarding. It's so easy to make like a state-of-the-art user experience with React when building like a WordPress plugin or even a theme or a block suite or whatever. It's huge benefits. So I think UX is more important than ever. And that's one thing that's important, but it's also a huge chance for people getting into that space, because we have like a lot of popular products that are clunky, that are outdated. They work, yeah, but it's just the whole experience with the block editor feeds off if you have to like copy and paste shortcode parameters, and you have to like, I don't know, some offsite documentation telling you to drag that widget, and we don't even have widgets anymore. So, and I think it's a pretty good time to get involved into the space, and starting with React first or with JavaScript first, maybe choosing something simple. I mean, there are a lot of uncovered ideas that aren't, where are not any cool products that are optimized for the new area of WordPress. Thinking of basic things like a glossary plugin, for example. So there are a lot of cool glossary plugins out there, but they're all shortcode based. They're all created 5 years ago or so. And if you can build something like that with a pretty decent UX and with a pretty good integration of the block editor, and it's a pretty surefire way to get some reach in the repository. Another important thing is write about your story, write about your product, write tutorials, obviously. And if you can combine both, so working with the new tools WordPress has to offer and sharing your journey on the go, I think the chances are pretty great that you get successful with your idea. Even if you pick like a non-niche. So let's say, I bring that example, but keep in mind not to follow that particular example. So let's say forms. I mean, forms is one of the most crowded spaces, but we see tools like WS Forms, which is kind of huge popular right now because of a pretty decent and well thought out user experience compared to things like Contact Form 7. And I think there are many spaces solopreneurs and smaller teams can enter right now that are more like mainstream, but haven't been covered in a way that is good enough for the new WordPress admin UI, which isn't covered good enough from the existing product market.
Yeah. Well, I'll add two things to that. I was just using a plugin. It was last year, but it was a major plugin, and there was a spot where you could add some like text above an area. And I was shocked that you had to manually type in the HTML. I think WordPress has because of it's free and open source, and people are forking things or adding stuff, or they just make it for one project and then they stop supporting it. There's a lot of assets out there that you can start with and then improve upon. So I love that advice, because I think there's a lot out there, and there's definitely there's huge opportunities for UI UX improvements.
Yeah. And not only for plugin developers, right? So the same is true for the, oh no, will the theme shops go out of business next week? No, they won't go away anytime soon. So check out blog themes, check out the whole economy around blog patterns. There's a lot of cool stuff coming in the next releases, in the next weeks, in the next month. And if you can leverage that right now and explain the concepts to your users and customers, I'm sure you win. And it will not take like 10 years from now. We're talking about like, if you are consistent and you push regular updates, I think you can. If you start now, you will see some success in like next year or the year ahead.
Love it. Patrick, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yes. So at Plugin FM, we love sitting down with exceptional product entrepreneurs and business owners to share their unique stories, as well as actionable tips and strategies based on firsthand experience. Listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please head over to plugin.fm to check out all of our previous episodes. Plugin.fm is brought to you by Freemius, your all-in-one e-commerce partner for selling software, plugins, themes, and SaaS, software as a service. If you're struggling to grow your plugin revenue, send a note to contact@freemius.com to get free advice from the Freemius monetization experts. That's all from us here today. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.